Well, hello.
Feeling vindicated, Jody Wilson-Raybould says she's grateful for the Ethics Commissioner's report, a document that shed new light on the SNC-Lavalin affair for her. She didn't know how intense the firm's lobbying campaign was, nor did she know about the legal opinions it quietly gathered from former Supreme Court justices as a way to bolster its case.
That came as a great surprise to me. Again, I had no knowledge of those either.
She says it's time for the Prime Minister to say sorry. The Commissioner says Justin Trudeau broke the Conflict of Interest Act by flagrantly attempting to bend the will of his former Attorney General in a bid to grant SNC-Lavalin a plea deal of sorts to escape criminal prosecution.
These are the kinds of things for which Canadians want an apology, I believe.
Fat chance, says Trudeau.
I was happy to take all the questions yesterday. I'm not going to apologize for standing up for Canadians' jobs because that's my job.
Election-ready cabinet ministers from coast to coast dutifully stood by their leader today.
The Prime Minister has my full trust, full confidence.
I personally have full confidence in the Prime Minister.
What the Prime Minister was doing was protecting jobs, and I appreciate that.
While Liberals try to change the subject, the opposition is all too happy to revisit the scandal.
Ultimately, if he won't be responsible for his own actions, Canadians will hold him responsible on October 21st.
Conservative leader Andrew Scheer has asked the RCMP to investigate. Wilson-Raybould is standing by her earlier comments that she believes nothing criminal happened based on what she knows, but she admits she doesn't have the full picture.
I leave it to the RCM police to determine if there's other relevant information that's pertinent to the question.
The opposition wants to explore the Commissioner's report further and have called an emergency meeting of the Ethics Committee for next Wednesday to try and start that process. Katie Simpson, CBC News, Ottawa.
So you just heard Jody Wilson-Raybould say that she's surprised at how aggressively SNC-Lavalin lobbied the government to avoid a criminal trial. And she spoke more about that with Vassy Kapelos on CBC News Network's Power and Politics.
Did you feel that the level of engagement at the time was inappropriate? And if so, did you do anything about it?
Well, I was aware that there were meetings. I didn't know the nature of those meetings or what was said. I had discussions with former colleagues of mine that had expressed that they had had conversations, but the nature of those conversations and the detail of those conversations was not made available to me.
The Prime Minister continues to reiterate that he says he won't apologize for standing up for Canadian jobs. He continues to reiterate that that was his motivation. Do you think that his motivation was different than that? And if so, what was it?
Well, I can't speak to the motivation of the Prime Minister. I've heard him speak about jobs, and I don't think anybody would disagree that jobs are incredibly important to Canadians and to elected officials to ensure we do everything we can for Canadians to have good, well-paying jobs. We all agree on that. The issue here and what was reflected in the Commissioner's report is around our institutions of government, around ensuring that we uphold their independence and uphold the rule of law. That was what I was doing in my role then as the Attorney General. I believe that's what Canadians care about and will take, if there's lessons to be taken from this some 8 months that we've been having this conversation, is that we all must remain vigilant and we all have a role to play in ensuring our institutions, the fundamental tenets of our democracy, are upheld.
Okay, so we have Vassy Kapelos joining us here from Ottawa. And so Vassy, if we take a step back, I mean, first of all, what do you think the calculation is here for Jody Wilson-Raybould in going public today?
Well, she has everything to gain by talking about this, first and foremost, because the ethics commissioner essentially corroborated everything she said happened. He said that, yes, the pressure applied to her was unduly applied and that it was to further the private interests of SNC. That's what she's claimed all along. So she says, and she's used the word, she feels vindicated. The other thing is you got to look at this through the election lens. She is in a competitive riding. She's an independent. Any kind of sort of higher profile for her is a good thing right now.
Well, and contrast that with the Prime Minister, I mean, who's in a very different situation.
Yeah, he is. And I mean, the question is, since she has so much to gain, does he have everything to lose? I don't think the answer to that at this juncture is clear. There is still another 2 months out from the election. I know it feels like it's tomorrow, but a lot of things can happen in those 2 months. And I think there is the potential for it to damage his brand, but we just don't know right now if that will certainly be the case in this election. Andrew?
Okay, the host of Power and Politics, Vashi Kapelas in Ottawa. Thanks very much. Now, as you've been hearing, the Prime Minister's defense in all of this has been that he was standing up for Canadians, that thousands of SNC-Lavalin jobs are on the line. Now, SNC-Lavalin is involved in billions of dollars of projects in Canada, from bridges to hospitals to subway lines. And if the engineering firm is successfully prosecuted for fraud and corruption, in a case going back well over a decade, it'll be barred from bidding on federal contracts for 10 years. So the stakes for a company with 9,000 employees in Canada are high.